All right, good morning. Thanks everybody for joining, spending some time with us. Here is part of our thought leadership series. Giving one of my favorite presentations today called Prying Eyes and Private Data, kind of our overview to cybersecurity and the state of cybersecurity that is facing businesses as well as individuals. So this is a presentation I've given around the United States, always updating it. It has some content here for business owners and managers, and also some content for you personally as well. I feel like identity theft and your own IT security, we're always trying to provide education to all of our clients and just to the general public as well, because if your employees are well protected and understand their role in cybersecurity, then in their personal lives, they also won't kind of fall victim to some of the challenges that the bad guys are using, which will mean they'll be able to be more happy and productive employees for you as well. So ultimately, this is kind of an everyone problem, and it provides an overview. So let's dive right into a lot of content today. As always, if you have questions, this is always a topic where I get lots of good questions on. Feel free to pop them into the Q&A section of Zoom, and I'll make sure to try to have a few minutes for questions at the end. And whether those be about IT security for your business or just in your own personal life, happy to answer any of those questions as we get to the end of today's topic. Thanks again for taking the time with us. So what are we going to cover today? We're going to cover who is writing viruses, who are the threat actors, and why do they do it? What does a breach timeline look like? What are kind of some of the current phishing examples and what to look out for? What are some of the future of attacks? Kind of what's the next stuff we're seeing from bad actors? And then, like I promised, some just personal tips around cybersecurity for yourself and for your family. Today, I'm going to share a lot of information that sometimes will be like, oh my gosh, that's terrifying. The bad guys are so good. It's not an attempt to scare people, but to provide some education about the where and the why and the how, to empower you to choose in your life every single day between convenience and privacy. And the best example I can give to this is the company Rovio. They created Angry Birds, the very first Angry Birds app, which became Angry Birds and Angry Birds 2, 3, 4, 5, and actually several blockbuster movies. Rovio, that company, built Angry Birds, and it was free. It was one of the first freemium model solutions. But before phones got smart to how they shared data and privacy, Angry Birds actually tracked your GPS location. And so the app was free and it was a lot of fun to play. But Angry Birds was also tracking where you were going in your day-to-day life, and they were selling that pattern of life data to places like Starbucks and Target and other people that were interested in profiles about buyers based on age and where they drive and what stores they visit. And so you had to make this decision between the free version of Angry Birds, which was really choosing to pay with your data and your privacy, or the paid version of Angry Birds, for $1 or $3 for that app without the ads and the tracking going on. So we make this decision every single day. And it's good to teach your children that you pay for every app that is on your phone. You pay either with your data or you pay with dollars. And in a lot of cases, maybe you should choose to pay with dollars instead of giving up, a substantial amount of data about your pattern and buying history and things like that. So it all starts with the first spam email that gets sent in the 1970s, right after the advent, essentially, of email and the internet. We start to get people realizing that this is a way to contact people and therefore, get them to do things that we want them to do. It really does come from a Monty Python sketch where several gentlemen are trying to order breakfast, and this group of singers comes in saying spam, 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 and they drown out the individuals who are trying to have breakfast. And it's in that drowning out, your spam email drowning out your mailbox. It really grew in the 90s and into the early 2000s. Spam email existed initially to sell adult content and pharmaceuticals. And people would, the industry in IT was trying really hard to sell people more and more devices to try to figure out what these spam emails are. We then try to go to the internet providers and say, geez, we're looking at the amount of data transferred into the United States, and a substantial portion of that data transfer is just dedicated to spam email, selling adult content. What do we do? So We tried to take down groups of botnets, which are computers that are infected working together. We try to take down ISPs. We say, hey, AT&T, in this data center, you're really harboring a lot of the spam email. You need to block this particular customer of yours that must be a spammer. But they still thrived, and they were getting around technology. They were getting around all the legal things that were attempting to be done. Really only stopped when Microsoft and as well, a group of technologists got together from across a number of disciplines, Microsoft and a West Coast college and a higher education institution. And they got some of these Walmart, Green Dot, Visa, and MasterCards, and they started doing targeted buys through the spam emails. And they were tracking, ultimately, of all the spam email that was coming in, 80% of it landed in these banks. And so this is the map that they made in the early turn of this 2010, 2012 time period. And so they're finding that these banks were ultimately processing for the bad guys, for these organized crime syndicates that had moved from drugs and into online pharmaceutical sales. And at the time, you could buy these things using Visa and MasterCard. So Visa, and under the pressure of this organization and researchers, we used Visa and MasterCard and said, they turned to these banks. Some of these banks you'll see on this list are pretty well known: Wells Fargo, and Bank of China, and Liberty Bank, WorldPay, a number of major banks. They said Visa won't make another deposit into any bank across any Wells Fargo unless you guys shut down these accounts. And pretty much overnight, shutting down the course of money, the way that they could make money through spam email, drastically dropped off the amount of spam email that was coming in. So you see this big drop in 2012 after this event, where it wasn't technologists. It wasn't that we got better, smarter spam filters. It was that we had taken away a big way that you could financially do these transactions. Around the same time, fortunately or unfortunately, just one of the quirks of how the world has worked out, the same time, this is when a technology gets picked up from an unknown author who writes about this technology called blockchain. And blockchain is this concept of instead of one bank or one database knowing what your ledger is, how much money you have, you distribute that into a wide group of computers that are not a part of any official banking system or anything like that. And then every time someone wants to make a transaction, you check the balance by asking all the computers that are in that crypto mining network. And as long as 80% agree that your balance is what you say it is, then the transaction goes through, which is blockchain, i.e. Bitcoin. Bitcoin and Ethereum are the two largest and most successful cryptocurrencies so far. And this worked perfectly in the timing in which Visa and MasterCard were actively cracking down on the use of those tools to buy illegal substances. Bitcoin is on the rise. And so the new modern currency for the black market very quickly becomes Bitcoins, and bit mining becomes the new money laundering. So you can see there on the left a picture of a bit mining rig. Bit mining is still going on. It is not in and of itself illegal. Basically, you line up a bunch of graphics cards like your kids use to play video games because you need as much computational power as quickly as possible to handle all the requests. Even at our fastest speed right now, the blockchain can only really respond to a transaction in the 2 to 7 minutes range, which is why blockchain is really probably never going to pick up as a technology for, say, Visa and MasterCard or your local bank, because the blockchain just takes too long to get quorum to ask the question of, do you have the money, to everyone in the blockchain into that distributed network. At the same time as all this is going on, the Tor Project launches to try to create a safer version of the internet, which works in a pretty similar way. Instead of connecting you to the wide internet through your ISPs, it actually connects your computer to a series of other people's individual computers. And that Tor network kind of means that it's a little difficult to find out who exactly you are. You don't have the ISP address of your ISP anymore. You are in this chain of other individual computers. that is called the darknet. So don't go to the torproject.org and download this browser. It connects your machine to a bunch of other machines. Statistically, within about 10 minutes of being on the Tor network, you're probably going to get your machine will get compromised or an attack will go against your machine. But this is where you can go to www.insertwebsite.onion website. So .onion on the Onion router network is the darknet and is where ultimately your identities and your credit cards end up. So they end up on things that look like eBay, things that look like message boards. You can see here someone posting cheap, fresh CVV dumps, full info. CVV, of course, the 3-digit number on the back of a credit card. So bad guys who have gathered large number of credit cards through phishing attempts over email, through nefarious viruses and ransomware. They take all of those credit cards, as well as hacking attempts, Target, Home Depot, if you remember back to those major breaches of payment systems, those ultimately all those credit card numbers ended up on the dark web on a message board like this. Criminals give other criminals ratings so that you know which criminals are most likely to deliver on their list of credit cards. And this is where all the smart criminals are. So they are using virtual machines to protect themselves, running through VPNs, joining the dark web, and uploading quantities of identities, medical records, social security numbers, passwords, and credit card numbers, and they're selling them to the dumb criminals who ultimately take those credit card numbers and actually try to buy stuff with it. Once you take a credit card, try to buy something and ship it somewhere, now you're kind of on the radar, and there's a greater chance that you're going to get caught and things are going to go bad. So the smart criminals gather stuff in bulk and then sell them. And this is, if you're asking yourself, if we know that Bitcoin is kind of the money laundering and money transaction of choice for the bad guys, and we know the dark web exists, why don't we just take it all down? Well, it's actually a really critical way for us to know what's going on in cybersecurity. So 80% of the people who are on the dark web are bad guys. The other 20% are security researchers and government agencies trying to monitor what's going on within the dark web to kind of get a sense of where cybersecurity and attacks are going and headed. Target and Home Depot both did not admit to their breaches before it was found by security researchers via the dark web, where they saw a large dump of credit card numbers hit the market. They ran credit reports against those people that had those credit cards. They were all Target credit cards or Home Depot credit card holders. And that's when security researchers were able to kind of go knock, knock, knock. We know you have a breach, and Target already knew that at that point, and that's why their incident response was so fast. Didn't slow them down a beat. We all go to Target. We can't leave without spending $100. All of those sorts of great things continue on. The world keeps spinning, and we haven't really punished them for a really major gap in their cybersecurity that costs a lot of people a lot of money. So this is the pattern that we have. Bitcoins then started to get supported by individual investors because it was a way to make substantial amounts of money. And the almighty dollar kind of always controls. So now Bitcoin is this weird mix of some legitimate investment money and a really large amount of illegal, untraceable currency. In the United States, if you buy Bitcoin, you're going to need to provide a copy of your driver's license and your social security number. So the tax man knows that you're buying Bitcoin and can eventually come asking if you sold that Bitcoin what its value is and make sure you pay your taxes on it. But tax laws on cryptocurrency are only things that exist in the last several years. And Bitcoin has been around since 2011, 2012. So we had a whole sets of years where we didn't have regulations, we didn't know what we were doing. And in other countries, you don't need any proof of what your identity is. You can walk up to a Bitcoin ATM anonymously and send and receive information. And that is why ransomware is on the rise. And that is why cryptocurrency is the go-to method for criminals. So to all of those that have a friend or family member or second cousin twice removed that has made a bunch of money in Bitcoin, that's fine and great, but understand that predominantly Bitcoin is used by bad actors, and it is being used to extort people into paying in this untraceable currency market. It doesn't mean that all digital currency is bad. There's definitely some countries like Greece that have had major malfunctions in their banking systems have collapsed, And so those people would rather trust a group of strangers and systems that have to have 80% quorum than maybe a centralized bank that, lost all their money because the bank lost the general ledger saying that they had their money in their account. So it's not that it's all bad. It's just that it is working well for certain investors and working well for criminals. And what you can do is you can go to a bit mining operation and say, I have 1 Bitcoin. I'm going to give you my 1 Bitcoin. You're going to give me back 0.999 Bitcoins, and they will have shuffled your Bitcoins all together, which is basically baked in digital money laundering to make it even less traceable. Now, the government, FBI, NSA have all made statements that they are increasing their ability to trace and track these types of transactions. And so the government is trying to figure out ways to catch up, but all of that is encrypted. You never have to provide your identity in a foreign country, and you have access to your cryptocurrency bank account by providing a very long randomized set of numbers and letters and an encryption key. So very hard to track those people down. It's kind of where we stand today. Is it's not that there is 1,000 or 1,000,000 different people writing ransomware. It's 65 organized crime syndicates, 36 of which are the most active. They are using ransomware because it's working. People are paying their ransoms, which gives them more money that they can funnel back into hiring more developers to do more bad things. They're increasing their sophistication. Attacks are able to live in the wild for a long time period. They're able to be what's called polymorphic, which means virus can kind of be set out into the wild and they can adjust on their own. The code is smart. So if somebody takes down the website where they're asking for the ransomware, the virus can actually go using an API, register a new domain name, and repost the ransom at another website. And no human needs to interact with that. They've just written very sophisticated ransomware at this point. Bad guys like to target credit card data or credit card data that's in memory. Phone scams continue to be on the rise. There's a really bad one going around. First of all, there's always bad phone scams around major events. So when we talk about stimulus payments going out to people, that's a great opportunity for scammers to call saying they're from the IRS, that are either coming to arrest you, you need to pay a tax debt, or that your stimulus check is held up and you need to provide certain information. They're also doing a very sophisticated one right now where they tell you, they get on the phone with, they target the elderly, unfortunately, but they get on the phone with somebody, say that they're trying to return money to you on a recent purchase, and then they accidentally return to you an extra zero. So it was $100. They were actually over returned to you $10,000, and then try to get you to mail them that cash back. And they log into your machine and they edit the web page of your bank account in real time. It's not actually editing your bank account. The page looks like your bank account, where they prove to you that your bank account now shows an extra $10,000. And oh my gosh, you need to give this back to us right away. And people are falling for it, which is terrible. And then we've got Windows XP end of life, Windows 7 end of life, Server 2003, Server 2008, Server 2012 around the corner. We had the Microsoft Exchange compromise because Microsoft Exchange had an unknown patch. It just kind of never ends to the number of events that we have. You can kind of see here that a majority of the bad activity or the offender that we can attribute cybercrime to comes from China and Russia. A little bit, and certainly Iran and North Korea are up there as well. And they're predominantly targeting over there on the right, the United States and kind of everywhere else around the world. So we are at the nexus point for this. These 35 or so organized crime groups are either just criminals that have shifted from the drug trade, where there are very harsh penalties, to cybercrime, where there's not a lot of precedent for stiff penalties or jail time. Hacktivists, people that are trying to make a point, think of the breach of WikiLeaks and the DNC. Those are all, trying to make a statement. They're trying to be activists. They're state sponsored. And this is not a statement that other countries are bad. We absolutely in the United States have a state sponsored cyber proactive cyber approach, which means we actively attempt to hack other countries ourselves. We did it in Iran. That became declassified, and there's great books that talk about this very Mission Impossible style event that we put on, where we hacked into an Iranian nuclear facility using a USB thumb drive. We convinced their machinery that they were enriching uranium when they, in fact, were destroying the uranium. and making it non-weaponizable. The United States isn't blameless here, and then certainly nationalist groups as well. This is a picture from Information is Beautiful about the world's biggest data breaches. They're always updating it. And unfortunately, some really big names and very large numbers. It can make you feel almost apathetic, like, oh, my data is already out there. I don't need to worry about it anymore. And that's really bad. When we start accepting that, Sun Prairie, local city here in Wisconsin, paid a ransom. We've got the city of Stoughton here, also locally, that's now faced with a ransom. That it really does happen right here in our backyard, and we do need to be more proactive, because every time we pay one of these, we are perpetuating the problem and giving them funding. So we do need to take this seriously, and we need to up our investment within our organizations and our own lives, and just our own awareness of what the challenge is. So like I said, as Visa credit cards can't be used to buy pornography anymore, we have this direct rise in ransomware because it's profitable, it's effective, and they can ask for the ransom in Bitcoin, which is inherently untraceable. Unfortunately, 1 in 5 small businesses who pay the ransom never get their data back. So your percentages when you pay the ransom are not great, but it can give you your data back. In general, an individual machine is attacked every 20 seconds or every 10 seconds, and every business about every 40 seconds. We here at Elevity, within our own threat network, the SOC, our Security Operations Center that oversees our advanced threat analytics for customers that are in our most sophisticated cybersecurity bundles, we see in our own customer base 3 to 4 attacks per day that we're preventing with our SOC team. So this happens right here in the Midwest, in small businesses, in mid-market sized businesses that we have. I talked about these are polymorphic, they're self-registering, they typically lock computer screens, and your standard antivirus that just runs on "have I seen this file before" won't prevent it. You need a tool that is using what are called IOCs, or indications of compromise, some sort of tool that can tell when a machine is behaving in a way that's abnormal for that user in that machine in that time frame, and raising awareness to a security operations center that can take immediate and proactive action. Other security statistics that are problematic: the average time to detect somebody inside your environment is currently at 191 days. It costs about $158 per record after you've had a breach, when it comes to remediation, loss of productivity, loss of revenue, loss of maybe prestige in the market, when you have to announce that you've had a breach. But this 191 days is really staggering. That number hasn't changed much over the last several years. People assume that when their computer at home starts to redirect their Google searches, that's the first time the virus appeared, which is not true. The attackers get in, they start gathering a lot of information about you, where you bank, where your healthcare provider is, what your email addresses are, who the people's names are in your family, and they gather all of that to launch future attacks against you and friends and family. It's only at the very end, when they've gathered all the data, they've installed all the viruses that they want to install, do they ever put something in front of you that an end user is really going to be able to go, my computer's acting funny today. I go here and it's sending me over there. That's the noisy part they did on the way out. That's 170 days into their attack already. So oftentimes when we're meeting new clients and we're putting in some of our security tool set, we are finding active compromises in the customer environments that we're having to remediate as we onboard them, which is really frightening, but unfortunately kind of the state of where we're at in cybersecurity. So what we need to shift our conversation to when it comes to security posture is this mean time to detect and mean time to respond, because it's not a question of if you're going to have a compromise in your business, but when. And so if you can't detect somebody in that 191 days, we would call your security posture level 0 or blind. If you can detect somebody in weeks, we call you minimally compliant. If you can detect somebody in days, that's securely compliant. If you can detect somebody in hours, that's vigilant. And resilient requires a SOC, think minutes. So our SOC, when that Exchange compromise came out, our clients that had subscribed to our SOC package, Even though Microsoft had not released the patch for it yet, our SOC had already seen the indication of compromise on Exchange Outlook Web Access and at least stopped the bad activity from spreading or happening any further. So that is this Exchange compromise that happened recently. And again, not Exchange Online, but people who hadn't made the move to cloud and still had Exchange on premise, is a perfect example of a 0-day. We didn't know about it. The world didn't know. And then one day we woke up and people knew that there was an active vulnerability that allowed you to read every single email of every person in the organization. And the only way you could stop it was to get a fairly complex patch installed on your Exchange server that no one was able to do in a matter of seconds. So you needed to have some sort of advanced tool to be out ahead of that. It's just a perfect example of you could have done everything right. You could have really good antivirus, a great firewall. You could have your Windows servers patched all the way to the 9s up until that date. It didn't matter because it was found out later by Microsoft themselves that their security updates missed this gap, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's just a perfect example of you can do everything right, and you're still going to need a safety net because it's not a question of if, but when. So in general, 91% of bad days start with a phishing email. Email is still the primary way that bad guys get in to your network. They get into your users' lives, and I'll walk through some of the most common stuff that we're seeing now. Email is that common entry point. And the thing that you need to have conversations with your employees about and always provide ongoing security training is, were you expecting this email? Is it a normal process for your boss to ask you to buy Google Play gift cards? Can I confirm this email that's asking me to wire money, change a bank account, change a payment address, change a banking address by talking or texting with the actual person? So many bad days would be prevented if somebody would pick up the phone, talk to another person and say, hey, did you actually ask me to do this? Because the email looks like it's coming from you. Because keep in mind, you could have your whole security house in order, but one of your vendors, your outsourced CPA firm, your outsourced AP vendor, your EDI partner that pushes and pulls invoices between your end customers and you, your insurance company, they may be compromised. So they're compromised, and it is a 100% legitimate email that is coming to you. And it is coming from the mailbox of Bob Smith at your insurance company. He's legitimately asking to update your ACH payment address, but it's not him. It's somebody in his email. He has fallen victim and is currently under an attack, and they're using that to attack everybody in their circle. So your cybersecurity is not just your business, but that next outer loop, your IT firm, your lawyer, your CPA, your insurance company, any business that you interact with, that next circle is also a part of your circle that can bring in really bad days. Always look for links, training your employees to kind of mouse over a link. Is it a Microsoft.com or an Apple.com page that it's landing you to? A lot of pages, and the number one way bad guys are getting in now is sending a phishing email that sends your employee to what looks like an Office 365 login page, and it asks them to re-authenticate to Office 365. And I'll show what one of those looks like here in a minute. Some are just to get information, and they just want more information so they can get smarter about what the next attack is. So this is an example of a fake Office 365 notification. It looks like Microsoft. It's got their logo. It's got send feedback to Microsoft there at the bottom. If you moused over that, you would actually see that it's going to land you to something.mic.ort. They're breaking up Microsoft into the domain. It's not Microsoft.com. And if the URL itself, before you get to any of the slashes, isn't Microsoft.com, it's not legitimate. Because Microsoft's not going to send you to something that isn't one of their primary domains. But if we get you to click on this, because it seems really urgent, you're going to get presented with this page that already knows your email address. What? Well, that makes sense. Microsoft would know my email address because I just clicked from it. If you look at the top, you can see that it's clearly not a Microsoft URL. They get a lot more sophisticated. They make those URLs a lot more confusing looking and really technical looking. If you provide your password in this page, they're going to log into your Outlook via Outlook Web Access or via Microsoft Online, and they're going to read your email for months, and they're going to learn about your patterns. They're going to learn who you talk to. They're going to learn how you write emails, and it's just a really bad day. We have also now seen an attack where they will send this password link to you, and then if you have two-factor enabled in your Office 365, They will refresh this page on you because the bad actor will be in real time watching this attack go on. And they'll actually dynamically update. A little drop down box will show up asking for the 2-factor code from your phone. And your employees will now enter the 2-factor code. They will take that 2-factor code and go input it into Office 365 on their own computer. The bad guys will download the cookie that lets you hold that login for 30 days. And now, even though you had 2-factor protection, they are also in your email and monitoring it for another 30 days. And the attacks just kind of never end. So how do we get ahead of that? I thought I did everything right. I added 2-factor to my business. Again, it's that SOC. It's that other team of individuals that is watching and saying, this user doesn't normally in the middle of the day re-authenticate for no reason. And why are they authenticating a second time from a foreign country or from another state? And so we need to look for these IOCs, these indications of compromise, in order to be able to stay ahead of some of the most advanced threats that are going on now. 71% of attacks target small businesses, and 60% of small businesses ultimately close their doors after a cyber attack. So it's definitely a risk to your business to kind of not take this really seriously. Your passwords are a big part of it. So not only is email your kind of high risk point number one, but then it's your password and your identity. It only takes hackers about 4 minutes to get into your network, but again, 191 days for you to typically discover that you've been breached. And it's usually over 63% of passwords are weak, default, or stolen. And it's just time and time again, as we read in the news about somebody that left a password, just one password at admin, brings the bad guys ultimately into your environment. And so we need to teach people about password best practices. We can't be using short password or known ones. Don't use your address, your kids' names. Don't ever respond to a Facebook quiz. Facebook quiz saying, well, let's find out what your funny name is for today. Take your birth month, your birth date, and the street you grew up on, and that will create this funny phrase. Those are run by bad guys. They want to know that because those are security question answers that they can use to try to get into your bank accounts. People don't think about it, but don't give up information about yourself, even on Facebook, particularly on Facebook. We're going to talk in a little bit about entropy and why long passwords are significantly stronger than anything with short passwords, even with numbers and characters. The NIST, the National Institute of Security and Technology, or NIST, that provides kind of the strategy for our U.S. government in cybersecurity and contractors working with the government. They used to say you need to update your password every 3 months. What that ended up doing is create a lot of people making passwords star password 1, star password 2, star password 3. And that didn't make our world any more secure. So they've updated their recommendation. And so we've updated our recommendation to our clients as well, that people should update their network passwords twice a year, but do it in meaningful ways and make sure that those passwords are over 11 characters. Try to train your employees and train yourself to never repeat important passwords ever. So the password that you use for your online bank, never repeat that at your work, never repeat that for a web store you just bought stuff for Christmas from, because if you're reusing your password, then you're only as secure as the weakest security of any one of those organizations. So Bob's Gift Shops online, where you bought that one present, but you reused your favorite password because you can remember it, they get breached. The bad guys will take your password, will either sell it on the dark web or sell it on the dark web and start using it against Office 365 and most major banking institutions to see if that password you reused and could get in somewhere. So use a tool, LastPass, KeyPass. I don't care. I don't represent any particular products here, but use their password generator. Use randompasswordgenerator.com and its tool set to make sure that you're always using unique passwords. Never save your passwords in an email folder. Don't save passwords in an Excel file or Word file. I prefer your passwords be written on a piece of paper in a locked drawer at your desk, because at least that's not digital anymore and can't be attacked. And if it helps you set long and good passwords, I'm all for it. Just make sure that the drawer is locked for anyone that can walk into your office. 2-factor, I know I gave an example of where it could be bypassed, but in general, 2-factor should be on text message and app for every account possible. Your Amazon account, your bank account, your Facebook account, Instagram, your work accounts all should have long password plus some sort of secondary factor to confirm your identity. These were the worst passwords in 2020 that people used and most overused. So obviously 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or test one or password or test. You can see some of these. If you are using this or any version of any of these, anywhere in any of your passwords, you're on kind of the list of the worst passwords available. In Wisconsin, something involving the word Packers or Badgers, pretty close to being one of the worst. So let's talk about a couple of tools that I can give you today to think about how to make a better password. And this is where I promised we were going to talk about entropy, another vocabulary word for you for the day. Entropy is our fancy, dorky way of saying how many guesses it would take a computer to ultimately guess your password. So people would think that this troubadour type with common substitutions of zeros for O's and ampersands and things like that would be pretty hard to get. You know, maybe trombone or something similar to that. What is trombone? No, troubadour. You know, what is the word? This is really hard to remember, that word, but it's actually really easy for a computer to guess. So it only has 28 bits of entropy, so that's 3 days at 1,000 guesses a second. That's pretty easy for a computer to get. If we just take 4 random words, correct horse, battery, staple, because of the length of it, you see there's no capitalization, there's no symbols, there's no special characters. But because of the length of it, that has 44 bits of entropy, which means it would take 550 years for a computer at 1,000 guesses a second to get into that password. That makes it hard, and it's easier for you to remember. So always imagine in your head a picture. Our brains are meant to be visual. So thinking of a picture, that's a battery, that's a staple in a battery, and a horse is looking at it. That's really funny. If you think about that, it helps you remember the 4 words to put together. So pick 4 random common words, and that will get you to the length that is the most important part of security. And that will make your passwords infinitely stronger. The other method uses the PAO method, or the person action object. So select an image or think of an image like Mount Rushmore, maybe a photo of a famous person like Beyonce, and then some action with a random object. So Beyonce driving a Jello mold to Mount Rushmore. So again, just using those words in a really long password would be more secure. If you can scrunch those so that they're not real words in the dictionary anymore, so changing driving to dry gel, it will also improve the security. That's an 18-character password that will appear completely random, but yet it's familiar to you, memorable by you, and ultimately mean that the likelihood of that password being compromised is very low. So these are methods that you should train your staff on. And as always, with any webinar we do, we're happy to share our content so that you can share it within your team. We also provide security training in a number of ways for your organization if these are things that you think your team should hear about. So again, thinking about maybe changing a password or into a full sentence. So the password on the left with those common substitutions is not as good as just the whole sentence itself. Sentence passwords are way more secure. So as if the world wasn't already scary enough, what we saw in 2020 was a real breakthrough in supercomputing and quantum computing. So all computers that you work on today operate on a concept of zeros and ones. Google launched Summit last year. Their quantum computer was able to prove the randomness of all numbers in 3 minutes and 20 seconds that a normal non-quantum computer that would take 10,000 years. So everything I just talked about in passwords, as we're finally getting people to write longer passwords, we're also inventing technologies that are so much more powerful. We can break all of those, including we can break the HTTPS, the SSL certificate that protects a website. A quantum computer can go through all the random letters and numbers that's in an encryption key faster, and fast enough that it can actually break encryption. So think of quantum computing as, instead of it being a 0 and 1, a quantum computer can do anywhere and any infinite path in 3 dimensions from 0 to 1, and those are called qubits. So it exponentially and dynamically changes the amount of computing power that we have available. That same NIST, the National Institute of Security and Technology that I talked about before, they have this page, PQ Crypto, is dedicated to figuring out and trying to solicit bids from organizations to build encryption keys that would survive a quantum computer's attack and ability to break them. So stay posted, but in order to secure an HTTPS website, we're going to need to take a big step forward in some of our encryption abilities here very shortly. One of the other examples I gave in a talk that I had is this company that's interesting to watch. Descript had built an AI. On this web page, you can type in any words, and it will, if you give it your voice for about 3 minutes, it can build a vocal model of what your voice sounds like, and then you can type any word and it will speak it back to you like it's your voice. It was built with this really innocuous intention of, if you were recording a podcast or if we were recording this webinar not live and I screwed something up, rather than making me re-record it, we could just type the word. We could delete that portion of the audio and just type the word, and it would know my voice enough that it would be able to replace the words in the podcast or in the webinar. That's where they created this for. But bad guys are using the technology and are seeing the evolution of AI and machine learning to a point where we're starting to see the possibility of a computer listening to your voicemail box message, learning enough about what your voice sounds like, that it could make impersonated phone calls as you, authorizing credit card transactions, bank transactions, and things like that. So after all of this fear, how do you protect your business? Here at Elevity, we're really focused on cybersecurity. We rebranded about a year ago, to be Elevate and Security stuck together, because we see the challenges coming to small and mid-sized businesses around cybersecurity. You'll see that education is at the top and in bold, training your employees to be aware of the risks, training them about what phishing emails look like, what fishy login pages to Office 365 look like, has way more impact than us selling you a whole bunch of really cool technology. We'd still be really happy to sell you a bunch of cool technology, and those solutions are a part of our offering. But we talk about the 4 S's at Elevity being strategy, security, solutions, and support. You'll see solutions is third in our order. It's all about strategy and training first, having a direction for your organization when it comes to technology aligned to the business. What is your 3-year roadmap, and where does cybersecurity fit into that? Security is second, training and education, ongoing training every month and teaching. And then it's the security solutions, that layering that security, making sure we have all of pre-attack prevention, breach notifications, monitoring and detection, mobile protection. It's that layered approach that is really critical. So I promised some personal security stuff before we get to Q&A. Always a fun section just to talk about some things you can do in your personal life. If you don't like the fact that when you go searching for a new pair of shoes, then you go to Facebook and your ads are all about shoes, that is because you are being tracked. Google is very open to being, and they've, their whole business model is tracking you. Building a profile about what marketing materials you want to see, what your interests are, in order to represent that information to you. And that provides you really great contextual ads, but it also means that there are companies that are gathering lots of data about you. If you don't love that idea, try switching your browser or your search engine to duckduckgo.com. Funny name, but a search engine dedicated to never tracking you with any sort of cookie will give you a whole different view of the internet. If you want a fun party game and you're with some friends and you all have your laptops out because you're all working from home, you're 6 feet apart and socially distant and all that sort of good things, all search the same thing in Google and see how that you all get different results. It's because Google has learned a lot about you and what you want to see. And that should tell you that the internet that you see every day is the internet that advertisers have decided, based on a profile they built from you, from app tracking you on your phone, tracking your email that you get through your Gmail account, tracking what your web history is, what it is that you like, and what information you want to see. Credit freezes are a great idea. If you are not in the business of getting new loans every single month, then you should absolutely go to each of the 3 major credit bureaus and put your credit on a credit freeze. You can thaw it. A credit freeze doesn't prevent an existing credit card that you have from just doing a lookup to see if your credit is still good enough to keep giving you that credit card. It just prevents new lines of credit from being formed. And again, most of us are not taking out whole new lines of credit every week, every month, or maybe even every year. So at all major credit bureaus, your credit should be frozen. Credit monitoring for your children is not a bad idea, so that their credit isn't wrecked before they're 18, in case their social security number was a part of the Blue Cross Blue Shield hack or any of the others. I know my kids got free credit monitoring thanks to Blue Cross at one point because of their compromise. Some of your browsers, Firefox, your Apple iPhone, have options and settings where you can toggle and enable additional privacy or mark my browser more private. So there's some steps that you can take to just improve it. You should train your staff and yourself to never plug in an unknown USB drive. It's really fun to drop USB drives in parking lots and see, put some software on them that has those USB drives call home when they've been plugged in. A USB thumb drive is $2. You don't need that free one. Please don't ever plug it into your work computer for a number of reasons. One, people drop these USB killer devices that just send a looped power blast to the motherboard and will shoot the computer that you are using and make it inoperable anymore. As well as it's just a direct way to bring viruses into the network. While you're traveling, be aware of these devices. They're called Wi-Fi pineapples. You'll see that you can buy them for $100. They're available online. Please don't go buy them. Kind of like don't go researching the dark web. But they are available online because they're used as training tools for white hat security researchers like myself. Really, the bad guys are buying them as well. And you'll see that one antenna connects to the Wi-Fi at your local coffee shop. The other antenna emits the exact same Wi-Fi name. So you connect to it, you get internet, you think you're on that coffee shop's Wi-Fi, when in fact there is a man in the middle. There's this device in between everything you're doing. They gather passwords and other information about you. You can see you can buy the tactical edition that comes with a battery. So it doesn't even need to be plugged in. It can be dropped off and left. I did a piece with CBS out of Milwaukee. We put one of these into a local coffee shop with everybody's permission. And I was able to walk around the room and tell people their Facebook passwords and what they're looking at online. Freaked people out, but taught people a lot about secure Wi-Fi while you're traveling. So always use your cellular hotspot. It's your own private connection to the internet. When you're using public Wi-Fi, always use a VPN. If you don't have a corporate one, get a personal VPN solution. Wi-Fi at big locations, a Starbucks or a McDonald's, they're buying wireless access points that have the technology built into them enough to look for those Wi-Fi pineapples and rogue wireless signals. But your local mom and pop shop doesn't. Never ever do any sort of online banking or online purchasing when you're in public or at a public Wi-Fi. Over email, set up a separate email account for your bank accounts and other sensitive online information. So, you have your Gmail account that you've had since college. That's great. Don't use that for your bank. Set up another email address that is a random set of numbers and letters that doesn't have your name in it, and that should be for your bank, your retirement account, maybe your healthcare. Never reuse your work or main personal email for any of these critical financial pieces. Assume that a bad guy will get into your email at some point. Will they be able to see enough and read enough about your life and where you shop and where your finances are that they'd be able to run amok through your life really quickly? What's the best for email? Probably not Gmail, since they're in the business of selling your data. There's an ad-free version of Outlook that you can buy, a personal edition to Office 365. It's only like $12 a year, something like that. It's very inexpensive. And again, you pay with your data at Google or you pay with your dollars at Microsoft in order to maintain your own privacy. Protecting your kids at home. Opendns has got a free DNS, a set of DNS servers that you can put into your home router instead of Charter or TDS or Spectrum or Cox or whoever you have as your main ISP. If you swap out your ISP's DNS servers and your router for these two, it's going to provide free and basic filtering from adult content and the dark web. And makes it super easy. You can set up a free account, even lets you monitor and manage some security levels for your kids at home. That's all at opendns.com. Again, password management, LastPass, or any other ones, no Excel spreadsheets, never in your email. Even a password protected Excel spreadsheet is not protected, and passwords on Excel can be broken very easily by bad guys. So none of those methods are good enough. You need to use a legitimate, fully encrypted password protection system or a piece of paper with a legitimate lock on the drawer at your desk. Please don't buy technology on Craigslist. Electronics are almost a no. If you are, there is, in our local city here in Middleton and Stoughton, they have Craigslist pickup spots at the police station. Suggest you meet there and only ever meet there. Don't divert in the last 2 minutes when they text you and say, hey, can you meet me here instead? Don't do it ever. Don't do it ever. Most robberies are because of Craigslist meetups when it comes to personal individual robberies that go on. The police are always advising people to please not do it. Don't buy used phones or devices from people that you don't know, and just set a rule in your family. Tell your parents, tell your grandparents to never ever send money to you online. If you go to a Walgreens, sometimes go to their money station where you can wire money. Just see all the warning signs there, trying to get people to please don't wire money, please don't Western Union money to somebody who told you, even somebody masquerading as a family member that says that they're stuck in Europe. It's just probably not true. And just establish that you're not going to use those technologies. So with that, 10 minutes left, I will take a break, have another sip of water, and see if anybody has any questions about security for their business or for their personal life as well. Happy to answer any questions about IT security that I can for folks. Thanks again, folks, for joining us today as we give people a few minutes to ask questions if they have any. For those that stuck around, if you have think of any questions or you don't want to ask them through the chat here, feel free to drop me an email. If you're ready to ever to get started or talk more about our layered approach to security, please let us know. We're always here to help. One good question: if OpenDNS is free, what data are you paying with? That's a great question. That's what I'm trying to train people to do. OpenDNS was a completely open source product. They were acquired by Cisco, and as Cisco brought in, it's part of Threat Umbrella now as the commercial product. So those that are on Threat Umbrella or OpenDNS's Threat Umbrella are paying for all the service, and because they have some open source content to them, and kind of as an homage to the fact that OpenDNS started that way before being acquired, they have run those DNS servers for free. DNS servers are also, they're free in general. Google posts publicly their DNS servers are 8.8.8.8 and 4.2.2.4 because a DNS request requires basically no traffic and basically no horsepower. And so it's just a technology that doesn't require versus an app or a game where you have to run really powerful servers that scale up for the number of users. You can run a DNS server that supports millions of people on very little financial spend. But thanks for thinking of. I said do something free, and if you're not paying for money, then it must be something else. I certainly recommend other products. NetNanny still makes a great product for monitoring usage of technology devices by your children. We use Amazon's tablets, and we pay for their free time technology, which provides us parental controls over their tablets and lets us monitor their usage, as well as set time limits and content limits and things like that. So there are a lot of really good paid for tools to help parents. Don't feel like you just need to give your young children iPhones that are unlocked. Probably not a great idea. There's a lot of tools available, some that you need to pay for, but are worth it. Well, again, thanks everybody for spending some time with us. Hopefully somewhere in today's presentation was something new or educational for you. If you have any questions or you want to take the next step in your organization or personal cybersecurity, feel free to reach out. Elevity is here to provide the education and content to help you and your business. Have a great day and have a great week, everybody. Hope you're enjoying some of the nice weather and maybe a spring break. Take care and stay safe.